Gather round the fire, my friends. I've got a chilling tale to tell you. A mystery that remains unsolved over 40 years later. The perplexing case of 5 young men who vanished into the snowy mountains, never to be seen alive again. It begins on a cold February night in 1978 in the quiet farming community of Yuba City, California, where we meet the Yuba County Five. These 5 boys had exciting plans for the weekend. Their beloved basketball team, the Gateway Gators, had a crucial away game. They were headed to Chico, about an hour south. If they won, they'd clinch a trip to LA. Now, the Gateway Gators were no ordinary team, and the boys were no ordinary players. The first of our 5, Ted, was 32 years old and had an intellectual disability. So did 3 of his 4 teammates, Jack, Bill, and Jackie. What those boys lacked in IQ points, they made up for with heart. Their other mate, Gary, was also a player on the team. The Gators meant everything to them. Let's meet these men properly. Ted Wire, 32 years old, was described as childlike and loving. Ted had held jobs in the past, but was currently unemployed. He lived at home with his supportive family. Jack Madruga, 30, had graduated high school and served in the Army. Jack had a driver's license when few of the others did. Bill Sterling, 29, worked washing dishes after quitting a prior job where he felt exploited. Bill brought money and multiple maps on the trip. He lived at home with his mother, who looked after him. Jackie Hewitt, 24, was the most severely disabled of the group. He had limited verbal skills and couldn't perform basic tasks like using a phone. Before living at home, Jackie had spent significant time in a state mental hospital. Gary Mathias, 25, was an Army veteran who had been treated for psychiatric issues. He was closely bonded with the other 4 men despite having no disabilities himself. He was known to be a bit volatile, but had been stable and responsible for the past 2 years. These 5 boys had exciting plans for the weekend. Their beloved basketball team, the Gateway Gators that they all played for, had a crucial away game. They were headed to Chico, about an hour south. If they won, they'd clinch a trip to LA. Late in the afternoon, Ted's mom saw him off with a wave and told him she would see him tomorrow. Little did she know, that was the last time she'd see her precious boy alive. The boys piled into Jack's prized blue Mercury Montego sedan and headed down the highway, bursting with excitement. They breezed through the game, and when that final buzzer sounded, victory! The Gators were LA bound. Their celebration continued at a local convenience store where they loaded up on chips and sodas for the ride home. By 10 p.m., they were back on the road to Yuba City, riding high on their win. But somewhere along that dark, lonely highway, something went terribly wrong. That car full of happy boys never made it home. The next morning, Ted's mom jolted awake with fear clutching her heart. Before she even checked the bed, she somehow knew. Her son hadn't come home last night. Frantic calls to the other boys' family confirmed her worst fears. None of the Gators had returned from that supposedly quick and harmless trip. Where could these defenseless young men be? They had no survival skills, no real concept of danger or evil in this world. And the longer they stayed missing, the smaller their chances became. Nearly 2 weeks passed with no trace of the boys, until a lucky break came from the strangest of places. The isolated snowy peaks of the Sierra Nevada mountains, over 70 miles off course. An abandoned turquoise sedan was spotted on a lonely forest road. It was Jack's precious Mercury Montego. Inside were snacks and maps, and all signs pointed to the vehicle being left in a hurry. But no footprints emerged from the car. Where were the boys? The discovery triggered a massive search of the surrounding wilderness. However, the extreme weather hampered efforts. Blizzard conditions rolled in, blanketing the region in layers of deep, dense snow. Even seasoned rangers struggled to navigate the brutal terrain. As hope of finding the boys alive dwindled, the families of the 5 boys descended into their own frozen hell. Not knowing their son's fate was unbearable torture. Weeks turned into months when finally a break came. In June, the thawing snow revealed its grim secrets. Ted's remains were found in a remote forest cabin, huddled under thin blankets. His cause of death? Starvation and exposure. But the discovery raised more questions than it answered. Why had Ted seemingly made no effort to utilize the propane gas and ample food supplies that were also found in the cabin? His actions made no sense for someone fighting to stay alive. More skeletal remains soon emerged from the retreating snowbanks. Jack, Bill, and Jackie were all accounted for, but not Gary. The frail bodies suggested they had collapsed in the blizzard before reaching the shelter where Ted perished. But Ted wasn't alone in those agonizing final days. Signs indicated at least one other person had been with him. That person knew how to operate and access the food and supplies. So why had they let Ted die? Why abandon the group when they surely could have summoned help? And where was Gary? As the only member without disabilities, surely he stood the best chance of survival. Had he escaped this nightmare or orchestrated it? His body was never located in the search area. To this day, the families suspect Gary holds the secrets behind this mystery. But with no evidence or leads, the police and families remain stumped. Many theories swirl around the bizarre disappearance of the Yuba County Five. Some believe the boys stumbled into a covert criminal enterprise and were silenced to protect dark secrets. Others wonder if military experiments could be connected to the strange saga. But the boys' family hold a more chilling theory. In their grief-stricken minds, a ruthless killer lured those innocent boys into the mountains that night. A merciless predator who toyed with them before killing them off, one by freezing, two by starvation. All except Gary, who they think became an unwilling accomplice. The disappearances of Ted, Jack, Bill, Jackie, and Gary puzzle investigators to this day. Their remains tell a tragic tale of exposure and starvation high in the Sierra Nevada mountains. But glaring questions persist over 40 years later. Why did they abandon their vehicle to travel deep into the blizzard-covered forest? Who or what led them there? Why did the supplies in the remote cabin go unused? And where is Gary, the missing piece of this unfathomable riddle? With no further evidence or leads, the full truth may continue haunting those desperate for answers forever.